Hello and welcome to a new video, and today I'm wearing this Oni Elvis the Alien shirt, but I really wish, and I almost had got it, I really wish I'd gotten the Baphomet shirt, because today we are going to be talking about Baphomet, the the Satanic Temple, yes, the Satanic Temple, and Sabrina, the Teenage Witch. So if you guys are unaware, there is a new Netflix series called The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which is less so based off of the old television show with Melissa Joan Hart, and more so based off of some of the more recent comic book runs. So it's got a little bit more edge to it. Kind of like how Riverdale is like based off the edgier comic books about Archie. The darker ones, except Riverdale turned into kind of a dumpster fire. And I don't know, maybe I'm not really sure where Sabrina's going. I'm about halfway through Sabrina. I'm having fun watching it. But they've recently come under fire, or Netflix specifically has come under fire with Sabrina because of their use of Baphomet. More specifically, a depiction of a statue of Baphomet. And now, when I first saw this, I thought it was ridiculous. But then I decided to look into it. So before we go into the full details of like why this lawsuit's happening, what it means with Sabrina, why Baphomet is in Sabrina, why there's an issue here, I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of a history lesson on Baphomet. So if some of you guys are like, what the hell is that? It's this thing. This thing. You've definitely seen it before. The kind of imagery is pretty common, but it started back with like the Knights Templar during the Crusades, when individuals confessed to worshiping a heathen idol called Baphomet. But there's kind of like a scholarly belief that this might have just been a mistranslation or a misrelaying of the word Muhammad, which would be for the Muhammad, which would make more sense, honestly, in the scale of things, but either way, that gave birth to this concept of somebody named Baphomet. And the main imagery for Baphomet is a little bit different than the one that they use in Sabrina, and that's why this is gonna that's gonna be important later on. But the original art for Baphomet was devised by Eliphas Levi, who was a French occultist. It first appeared in his book Transcendental Magic back in 1856, and the general idea of the figure was supposed to be the reconciliation of opposites. So that's why it's, a human body, animal head, looks to be more of a man body, but has the breasts of a woman. You've got the as above, so below symbols. And there's just a bunch of other stuff that just kind of like signifies those opposites. Now, for this specific issue, this is not the Church of Satan. This is not like the big satanic church. This is the Satanic Temple, which I actually think only came to be back in about 2012. So they're still relatively new in their inception, but they've adopted the Baphomet symbol, as is pretty common in that space. And for them, it's not really supposed to be a negative symbol. It is just supposed to be that idea of celebrating opposites, and it's their idol. Now, getting into the lawsuit with Sabrina. Now, like I said, originally I thought it was ridiculous because Baphomet is kind of like any other kind of like religious symbol. Nobody really owns it. Nobody can own the concept of Baphomet, so it's not something that they could copyright. It's not something that they could sue over because somebody decided to use it. So I was very confused as to what they were going for, but I looked into the lawsuit so you guys didn't have to, and the main idea that is being countered here is the fact that they own the rights to that specific iteration of Baphomet. So, like I said, the original version had breasts of a female. For the Satanic Temple, because they wanted to make this massive statue, which cost $100,000, only $30,000 of which was from donations, so I would love to know where the extra $70,000 came from. So they build this giant statue. They remove the breasts for a couple of reasons. One, because it's supposed to be potentially in some kind of like public government space. Two, to make it more accessible to people. Three, so they didn't get bogged down in some kind of weird gender debate, which ultimately just led to a gender debate because everybody thought that they were unintentionally like erasing the history of what Baphomet's supposed to be, and might have been some kind of stance against transgender individuals. So basically you can't make anybody happy. So it didn't honestly, they should have just said, we took them off so that we could publicly display these places. That was the main reason why. And then one of the bigger additions is the two children looking up. And I honestly think the two children looking up at him are where the major tie lies and where they have like the best footing. So with Baphomet, there usually isn't many people around him. If you kind of look up the images, sometimes there's different kind of like disciples or people, like a man and a woman, that are very clearly adults near him that are also nude. I'm going to touch on that in a second because it's not just strictly Baphomet that happens with, but that's going to tie into something later. But for their statue, they specifically have two children looking up at him, one boy, one girl. And according to the sculpture, they're based off of actual people. And the idea behind that was so that because they weren't going to show the breasts, which would have been that other contrast between man and woman in the figure itself, it's because you have one boy, one girl, that would have that contrasting opposite. And then the idea that if you saw children looking up at him, it was to say not to be scared of Baphomet. That Baphomet's not something to be scared of. I don't see, when I see two kids looking up at something like that, it's unsettling. I think most people think it's unsettling. A lot of people thought it was a little bit pedophilic in nature, but I'm just gonna say that the last thing on my mind was that they were added in there to make kids feel more comfortable. That's the last thing that I would have landed on. I think they missed the mark there. But anyways, why that ties in so importantly to why this lawsuit might actually have some kind of grounds is that is specifically linked to this specific statue. The statue was also filed with the US copyrights, so it's a bit cut and dry there. Which then makes it like a copyrighted item. That makes it almost like a work of art that they are directly copying in the same way. Even if they had gotten rid of the two kids, things would have been a lot better in my opinion. Again, I'm not a legal expert, I'm not necessarily a copyright expert, and I'm pretty sure that the parent company of who created the show, which is Warner Brothers, has a lot more lawyers at their disposal to try to make this situation go away. Because if they had honestly just left it at the copyright thing, I would have been totally okay with it. But then, of course, people started going at him on Twitter. So his first tweet was, "Yes, we are taking legal action regarding the chilling adventures of Sabrina, appropriating our copyrighted monument design to promote their asinine satanic panic fiction." And yes, obviously, if you're watching Sabrina, their use of the character is definitely a lot more violent than what Baphomet is supposed to be in these related scriptures. But I do think that there's like a degree of ignorance here on the side of the Sabrina people. So like I mentioned, there are images of a Baphomet-like character with a boy and a girl, I think they're a man and a woman, below him. And that's pretty common imagery of a tarot card that literally it's the devil. It's not Baphomet, it's the devil. And in Sabrina, they never refer to the character as Baphomet. It's never explicitly mentioned that it's Baphomet. In fact, they only ever refer to him as like the Dark Lord, Satan, and I think Sabrina might say devil once. And that's just how far I am. I clarified with some friends who were finished the show. I asked a couple different people, and I've had multiple people confirm that the word Baphomet is never used. So I honestly believe that they started looking up just like devil imagery. I'm sure they realized that there was that link to Baphomet as they're doing it. I don't think there's any way that they couldn't have realized that. But the imagery that they're trying to elicit and the fact that they're referring to him as the devil, and they even mentioned, I'm pretty sure that he's like Lucifer, and they mentioned all that stuff being cast out of heaven, really just lends home the fact that they are not trying to use this as a personification of Baphomet. They're trying to use it as a personification of Satan. Even in the comic books, there's these moments where it's like, hail Satan, hail Satan. Now, when it comes down to using the specific statue, that's where things get a little bit different. So Lisa Soper, the production designer, says that she thinks it's a coincidence and kind of just goes into detail talking about how there's all these other statues for things that are used, and you look up something, you get all these imagery, and then you make the statue. Now, I'm not entirely willing to believe that that's exactly what happened because, like I said, their version is almost identical to the Satanic Temple's. What I am more willing to believe was that they didn't realize that that was a kind of technically a copyrighted idol statue that they had commissioned for themselves. That it wasn't just like a public domain thing like a statue of Jesus or any other religious symbol in that way. Now, will that hold up in a court of law? Probably not. If it goes to court, they might owe money. I don't think that he's gonna win to the point that he gets the character removed. Like, I think he literally wanted the statue removed from the show. At this point, it's on Netflix. Like, what do you want them to do? I guess they could pull down all of those episodes, edit out the statue, re-upload the episodes. Like, I guess it's probably the most possible on Netflix compared to anywhere else. But if he had just kept it at the copyright, I would have been totally on board with him. But then he got weird about it because obviously people are kind of coming at him being like, Baphomet is not something that you can copyright. Why are you upset about free advertising? And like, obviously, yes, if it's advertising in a way that's opposite of what you would like people to see, obviously that's just not what you want, but still, it's still advertising. But then he got a little bit weird with it and said, what would happen if this was a show or a movie that was depicting a terrorist group operating out of a mosque, or a show that actually depicted Jewish people committing blood libel. So now you are trying to make it a religious thing, and that's where you don't have any footing. And you probably shouldn't have brought blood libel into a topic about a statue, about a figure that didn't exist, when literally every religion around the world gets insulted. And yeah, literally anytime somebody says something about Muhammad, there's a bunch of extremists that come at them. I don't know if you want to associate with that group, and you definitely don't want to try to make your situation like the blood libel situation. Short-sighted, man, just short-sighted. So basically, at the end of the day, I think that they, oddly enough, actually might have something to stand on, even if it's just on the fact that the creators of the show just didn't realize that the imagery that they were using was technically a copyrighted image and not just one of those ones that falls under, like, this is just a thing that anybody can use anytime because no one technically owns it. Unfortunately, you can't play ignorance in some of these situations, but once he started going into those weird side religious arguments, I think that's when you lost it with the public. That's the moment. But anyways, that is gonna do it for today's video. Let me know what you guys are thinking in the comment section down below. Do you think he has any kind of grounds to do this at all? Do you think he's in the right? Do you think he's gone too far with some of these statements? Do you think he has a right to be this upset? If you watched Sabrina, what did you think of it? But as always, that's gonna do it for today's video. Have a fantastic day, and we'll catch you all later.